Welcome to the next edition of Amanda and the Star Wars Summer. Except technically it's not really summer anymore, so I guess we'll have to change that to Amanda and the Star Wars Fall. It'll work. So I finished this one ages and ages ago, I just haven't done a video yet. The Dark Force Rising by Timothy Zahn. This is the second book in his Thrawn trilogy. It got even better. Oh my gosh. So I shared with you my concerns last time when I started listening to Heir of the Empire because I had read the book previously, hadn't loved it, hadn't really gotten into it, so I was afraid that it just wasn't going to be my thing. And then I got it on audio, and the audiobook was incredible! So I have to admit, having had trouble reading the first book the first time, however many years ago, and then really enjoying the audiobook, I was terrified that I wasn't going to actually be able to read it. Sometimes that happens with me. I can listen to a book, can't read that same book. Something about the way it's written drives me off the wall nuts. Sometimes it's the reverse way too. I love to read a book, but I can't stand the audio. I was terrified that this was going to happen with the Thrawn trilogy, which really would have sucked because my library only has Heir of the Empire on audio. They don't have any of the rest of the series on audio. But good news! Had no problem whatsoever reading this. I didn't find it dry or dull. I am not a fan of huge sections of prose. I like my dialogue, and absolutely no problem with that. Because I could hear the voice of Mark Thompson reading the prose to me, and I could hear the character and the attitude in it, and it made it a million times better. So totally loved it. I don't know if I would say that it's better than Heir to the Empire, but it definitely gets 5 stars. It's a great continuation. Still, all of the characters are acting very characteristic. Love how the storyline is progressing and can't wait to find out what happens next. So, stay tuned. I mentioned earlier that I was listening to the novelization of The Phantom Menace by Terry Brooks, and this was at the recommendation of Bruce Wayne, who's given me some pretty good Star Wars recommendations, I think. I haven't read any of them yet, so I guess I don't really know if they're good, but they're on my list to read. I really enjoyed this. Okay, so the thing with The Phantom Menace is I know that a lot of Star Wars people don't necessarily like it. And I can understand that because I have issues with the entire prequel trilogy. I think everybody does. It's just a thing that we have an issue with because it's not what we were hoping for. So the thing with Phantom Menace is it is the first Star Wars movie I ever saw. I had absolutely no idea what Star Wars was. So I went to see this when I was about 7 or 8, I think, is when it first came out, and I became kind of obsessed with it. I loved the movie. My aunt completely spoiled the fact that Anakin grew up to be Darth Vader, so you know that was yeah, I'm still hurting over that one. So I have a very soft spot for Phantom Menace. I loved Qui-Gon Jinn. I think probably the only difference between my younger self loving Phantom Menace and me now, older, loving Phantom Menace is the fact that the love of Jar Jar Binks did not carry over. That's the only big difference that I see is Jar Jar Binks is really annoying now. Really annoying. And as I was listening to it, I realized that it's added in quite a lot of extra content about Anakin and just backstory and background and just stuff that helps you understand better the story that they were trying to tell in the movie. Also, it helped that I haven't seen Phantom Menace in a long time. I haven't seen it in several years. I have not rewatched the prequel movies yet, and that's because I realized that I wanted to try and listen to at least the audiobooks of Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones before I saw the movies to help me get a better understanding of that. And I'm really glad that I did because it makes a lot more sense to me. You start putting together pieces that I didn't really recognize before. That could just be from age, and with age comes wisdom, because like I said, I haven't seen the prequel movies in a really long time, so it could be that all of the content that I kind of picked up on here, as far as the politics and the inner workings, how Palpatine is going to take over the government, is being played out. It could be that that's all in the movies and just I was so young at the time that I didn't recognize it, or it could be that the books do a much better job of explaining it, so take your pick. Pew, 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 pew. I got quite a Star Wars haul the last week. I received as a gift William Shakespeare's The Empire Striketh Back. Read this thing in a day, absolutely loved it, which is funny because I tried to read Verily A New Hope when it first came out and couldn't really get into it. There was a long monologue with C-3PO at the beginning, and I don't know, I hadn't rewatched the movies in a couple of years, and just, it seemed very repetitive. It was just the movie in Shakespeare. And so I had trouble with that, but I started reading this one and I absolutely love it, so now I have to go through and read the entire series. So this one also gets 5 stars. So much fun. Now the funny thing is I received this as a gift from my family, and so they of course all wanted me to open up to a page and read them some of the Shakespearean Star Wars. So I'm like, okay, whatever, start flipping through it. My sister says, no, you can't read something from the front, because that's not going to be exciting. Okay, fine. But you can't read something from the back either, because I don't want to know how it ends. Okay, let's go here. So I start reading to them. Luke, in troth I understand, and I shall try. Yoda, nay, nay, try thou not. But do thou or do thou not, for there is no try. Everybody agreed that was the perfect page to have randomly selected to read from. Share in the momentous occasion. I got way more stuff in my Star Wars haul, and none of them were books, but they are all freaking awesome, okay? So much stuff that I actually need to make, like, another Star Wars shelf, because they're not all fitting on my sci-fi shelf. You can see up here, it's like a Catholic saint candle, but it has Darth Vader. It's awesome. Sand Trooper and Dewback. And I did have to explain to my family where in the movie they were. Cute! A piece de resistance, okay? R2-D2. It's an awesome R2-D2 action figure, right? But it isn't!
Bop it to start.
This is Bop It.
Twist it. Twist it. Bop it. Bop it. Pull it.
I love this so much! I've been playing with it non-stop. This is so freaking awesome because I'm not a huge game person. I can lose interest in games very, very quickly. My parents weren't sure that they wanted to get me this, but they said, you know what? It's an R2-D2. If she doesn't like the game, she'll still like the R2-D2, but this is awesome. I'm telling you, Disney has done some brilliant merchandising with Star Wars items. Bop It! This is Bop It! This is the Millennium Falcon. It's also catchphrase. It's a Star Wars themed catchphrase. Remember what I was just saying about Disney doing awesome stuff with merchandising? This is spectacular, people. This is spectacular. I now have a Millennium Falcon, but it's also an awesome Star Wars trivia game. How do you compete with that? I'm asking you, other franchises of movies out there doing toys, how do you compete with this? You don't. That's how. So I'm a little excited about those, because I'm a Star Wars geek. Now this is supposed to be the year of reading all of the Star Wars books, or at least as many as I can cram into, and honestly, I have to admit I haven't read a whole ton yet. I've read quite a few, but not as much as I wanted to, because there's other stuff that I want to read, yada 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 yada. The whole point is to prepare me for the new movie that's coming out, right? And it's a thorn in the side of a lot of Star Wars fans, me included, the more I'm reading into it, but the Star Wars canon universe that has been accepted for the last, what, 20 or 30 years was declared no longer canon. So I am referring to this now as the classic Star Wars canon. I'm tackling it like kind of alternate universe of some kind. It's all still real to me. Not letting it go because I've just found it, right? Well, they finally started releasing books that are actually considered in the current canon that will be leading up to The Force Awakens. Now, the first 3 that I've gotten my hands on are actually considered juvenile fiction. So, these ones here, Star Wars. And on the back of each one of these it says, "Hidden within the stories are clues about the highly anticipated new film Star Wars The Force Awakens." So in here, there are actually details that are going to be relevant to the new movie. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, I'm kind of terrified to read these. Because what if they aren't as good? What if they do stuff with the canon that I don't like? What if they erase stuff that I loved about the classic canon and it isn't in here and I'm gonna have huge issues with it? Alright, I will admit, my biggest fear right now is that Han and Leia don't get together. That they aren't married. That they don't have kids. that would be very, very sad for me because I've always loved that pairing. Loved it so much. And now that I've started reading Timothy Zahn's Thrawn trilogy, I love it even more because they're so great together. So that is like my huge fear with this new canon. The first one is The Weapon of a Jedi, and this is a Luke Skywalker adventure. Apparently all of these adventures are actually the characters on their own, which I think could be very, very interesting. And I will let you know how it turns out. Smuggler's Run, a Han and Chewie adventure, which Han and Chewie, you gotta love them. And Moving Target, a Princess Leia adventure. Surprisingly, this is the one that I am actually the most excited for. Rewatching the Star Wars trilogy this last year, I realized just what an awesome character Princess Leia is. She is strong and confident and independent, and she doesn't take crap from anybody, and I really, really love that about her. So I'm very excited to read Princess Leia's story.
Pull it. Twist it. Twist it.
There are also 2 more novels in this series that they're coming out with that I know of. There's The Lost Stars by Claudia Gray and Aftermath by Chuck Wendig. I plan to pick those up as soon as I finish these because December is creeping up on us. Star Wars The Force Awakens is going to be here before we know it. And I haven't read all of the books that I need to read yet, and I'm going crazy. Right. Reaction time. Did you guys hear that Disneyland is building a new theme park? A Star Wars theme park. I am so happy about this. I have wanted to live in the Star Wars universe. I have wanted to be a Jedi since I first saw the movies when I was like 11 years old. I am ecstatic about this. They're going to build the park so it essentially feels like an off-world civilization. There's going to be aliens and droids just wandering around that you can interact with because it wouldn't be a Star Wars park if it didn't feel like you were actually in Star Wars, right? One of the only attractions that I've even heard about yet is that you will be able to fly the Millennium Falcon. I mean, the only thing that could potentially be better than that is like somehow actually being able to use the Force. You get to fly the Millennium Falcon and I'm freaking out about this, okay? Because I'm a huge Disney fan and I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I love this. Did anybody else see how they updated Star Tours? I loved Star Tours. It's been my favorite ride in Disneyland for years. I was heartbroken when I found out that they were going to change it because I loved it so much. But I finally went on the revamped Star Tours. It's even better. I'm always going to be nostalgic for the one that I grew up with, but it's even better. I love it. If you haven't been, you gotta try it. Fantastic, you guys. I'm so excited. This is a great time to be a Star Wars fan, in my opinion. Yes, they erased the canon that's existed for 20 or 30 years, but I mean, it's still there. It's not like they went out and hunted down every single book that's ever been written. There were still books being released until, like, this year, weren't they? I wouldn't be surprised if people were still writing books in that universe, even though it's no longer considered canon, just because it's huge and people love it. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that the new Star Wars theme park is gonna be freaking fantastic? Or do you have doubts? Do you guys still have doubts about what Disney's gonna do with the movie? Because I think so far they've done a really good job with merchandising. But I'm just saying that because I have an R2-D2 Bop It and
Pull it. Twist it. I have a bad feeling about this score.
a Millennium Falcon catchphrase. So personally, because I am such a huge Disney fan and I love what they've done with the Marvel movies, and I will admit I loved most of the live action films that they did with Jerry Bruckheimer. The ones that really bombed in theaters, like Lone Ranger and John Carter of Mars and The Sorcerer's Apprentice, I thought they were all fantastic. So I don't know what other people's problems were, but they were fantastic. For this reason, I have no doubt that The Force Awakens is going to be spectacular. I will be crushed if it isn't, but for now I am super, super optimistic about it. So what do you guys think? Do you have concerns about what Disney's going to do with the movies? Or are you being as outrageously optimistic as I am? So yeah, that's just how I feel about it. What do you think? I'm out of here.